Hello, my name is Karen Hughes, and I am the Domestic Violence Clinical Services Coordinator at the Life Crisis Center. And I want to welcome you to Life Crisis Today. Today we're going to speak about internet safety. The kids are home a lot, and we're trying to monitor what they're doing, and it's really difficult. So I have with me today Corporal Allison Herman from the Worcester County Sheriff's Office, and she's going to tell us some tips about safety for the internet. Hi, Allison. How are you today?
I'm very good. How are you?
And welcome. Internet safety. Oh my gosh. I just know that there's so much changes all the time. So let's talk first about what is your role with the Sheriff's Office?
Okay. I am a corporal with the Worcester County Sheriff's Office. I'm a detective assigned to the Worcester County Bureau of Investigation. One of my duties there is to investigate internet crimes against children. I investigate the suspects and the victims if they reside in Worcester County.
Wow. That must be all-encompassing, all kinds of things that happen.
Yes, and we've been very busy lately with the influx of COVID, with everybody being behind the computer.
And we need to start really young because little ones are now on school for having to be on the internet because of schooling.
Yes, with emerging technology, there are so many more devices in the homes. Devices, I mean cell phones, tablets, computers, the whole gamut. And they are in the hands of very young now.
So why don't we break it down into age groups?
Okay.
And we'll look at the elementary schools, and then we'll look at middle school and high school. Let's start with the elementary, because I know parents talk about body safety and stranger danger and things like that. I'm thinking we need to think about it that way for the little ones, even on the internet.
Okay, so with all the emerging technology, there's so many more devices in the home, and devices I mean by computers, cell phones, tablets, and everything else. And children are having access to those devices at a younger age now. And, you know, they want to get on there and play on the apps and, you know, maybe talk to their friends. However, you know, besides having open lines of communication, I think that the parents need to be, you know, looking at the devices and looking at the apps they're downloading and maybe researching a little bit about them and seeing if they have a chat function. And if there is a chat function, maybe, you know, shutting it off or maybe, you know, just enabling it so the child can talk to people they know.
Oh, so because the stranger may be posing as a little kid.
Yes.
And really they're the adult that's trying to find out information.
Yes, there are strangers online that pose as young children. They begin conversations, they try to fit in the profile as a child.
I'm thinking of the little guys, and if they are in those chat functions because they get in there anyway before the parents really realize what's happening, but maybe something feels weird or sounds weird to them, what do you suggest to have the parent teach the kids on how to tell?
Well, the parent and the child should have open communication to be able to, you know, tell somebody they trust that, you know, somebody tried to talk to me that I didn't know, or somebody said something that made me feel uncomfortable or something inappropriate, and they should, you know, be able to report it to them. And then, you know, the parent should in turn, if it is something concerning and it has gone that far, to report it to law enforcement. So
the child can tell the mom or the dad or the aunt or uncle or some teacher, and then that adult can like, ooh, let me investigate a little bit and then turn it over to you all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another thing with all that, with the devices and stuff, with parental controls, parents should be setting parental controls on devices, you know, just so they don't have so they have restricted access to downloading different applications, and so the parent can review and know a little bit about, you know, what they do and how they function.
Kind of like saying, no, not until I know what this program does. You can't have that program until I look at it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking middle schoolers and high schoolers, they kind of want a little bit more independence, and they don't really want mom and dad so much in their business.
Yes.
But they can get into some major trouble.
Yes.
Is there a difference between middle school and high school? Or
well, you know, when they get into middle school and high school, a lot of, you know, children have their own cell phones, and I think it's important that, you know, you explain to them everything you put onto the internet. If you send pictures or, first off, you don't know who you're sending it to. And if you do know who you're sending it to, it's going to be there forever. It doesn't go away.
Yeah, you can find things years and years later.
Yes.
I remember a friend of mine told me that even Google tracks where you've been. And if you've signed into Google even 8-10 years ago,
Yes.
they have a timeline of where you've been.
Yeah, everything's being tracked online. Even though you're not face to face and you're behind a computer or behind a cell phone or behind a tablet, you're still being tracked and you still can be found.
And whatever you've posted is there too.
It's there forever.
Right, right. I remember reading a story on, I don't know, probably Facebook or Instagram, somewhere, that it was a detective just like you, who was chatting with a middle schooler who was on the soccer team at their school, and got information as to what school it was, what position they played in the school, on the team, like they were chatting. And then the detective showed up at the parents' house because they were doing prevention to say, listen, this is how much information I was able to track you.
Yep. So like, again, you don't know who's on the other end.
Right.
So that open discussion needs to be had about, giving out personal information or too much information. A lot of detectives do proactive online investigations to basically to root out the people that want to do wrong on the internet.
Are there other things that parents can do to help monitor the phones or have, I don't know, privileges versus restrictions and things like that?
I think a good idea is to keep it, well, depending on the age, to keep the devices in a common area instead of allowing the child or the teenager to have access to the phone inside their bedroom late at night. In their privacy.
They can really get into some major things in the middle at nighttime. Yeah,
They can.
Yeah, and passwords.
Yeah.
Parents knowing the child's passwords.
Knowing the password, and they may seem like it's an invasion of privacy, but you're doing it to keep for their best interest, to be monitoring and looking and just seeing what they're posting and who they're talking to.
Right.
Or
I can just hear the teenagers or the preteens saying, but you don't trust me, and it's my phone, and things like that. But it's really important that the parent knows that information.
yeah. And then, there's open communication with the child to even talk to their friends about, and you can go to the point of cyberbullying or, and
knowing what the child does is really, really important. So monitoring not only the apps that they have, but also where they have it at night, that central storage, so that it's not in their bedroom with them, or knowing their passwords. What about just even knowing what they've been doing, like taking their phone and checking where they've been, that history stuff?
Yep, that's always a good idea because, you don't know who they're meeting online, or they may be meeting a complete stranger, or engaged in a conversation, late at night, and you wouldn't know about it, and maybe going out and sneaking out and meeting them.
Right. Yeah. And then how about cyberbullying? I know that that's a big problem. Yeah,
cyberbullying. We're taught not to bully in school in person, but when you're behind the internet, you think it's a safety net, or you can't be found, but
that it's anonymous.
Yeah, and it's not anonymous. That's what we do. We track people with their IP addresses. So IP addresses is basically like a location, a postal address, kind of puts you to where it's coming from, and we're able to find out who you are.
Yeah. How about sexting? We haven't talked about that yet. I know that kids will send me a picture of this or send me a picture of that, and they want to do this for their boyfriend or their girlfriend. I can see that being in the wrong hands.
Yeah, I think that's very important for teenagers and even anybody to realize that anything you send over the internet, first off, you don't know who you're sending it to, and then second off, if you are sending it to a friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or somebody you're in a relationship with, you don't know what they're going to do with it,
Right.
or it's going to be out there forever.
Yeah, yeah. And so maybe you and your boyfriend or girlfriend have split up, and then it's out there.
Yeah,
And
it
then
can go
gets shared
viral.
and shared, yeah. Viral around the world, not just
Yes.
viral within your school or things like that, but viral everywhere, yeah. The electronic service providers, let's start talking about tips and a little bit more of kind of what you do and how things are tracked and things like that.
Okay, so like you said, people may think, once you send something, it'll never be seen again. But electronic service providers, and what I mean by that, it could be Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, any popular application, anything that's sent on there, there's moderators. Technology, even people, they're monitoring the content. When they become aware of any kind of child exploitation material or anything that's inappropriate being said or sent and it is involving a child, they're mandated to report that information by the federal government to the National Center of the Missing Exploited Children. Now, when National Center of Missing Exploited Children receive that information, they distribute it to law enforcement.
Okay, okay.
Which in turn it
Then
would
that
come to
be
me.
Your job, yeah, yeah. So it's a really good thing that they're monitored. I bet you the parent, and we talked earlier about how the parent can monitor it as well. In monitoring, I know we said passwords and where what they've done. Any other things about the tips for going behind the parent, the child, or if the child wants this app, mom, I need this app.
Well, I think it's important for the parent, well, first off, to restrict, I'll use an example as Apple iTunes. When you're logged on, you can have, the child can essentially go to the iTunes store and download any kind of app they want.
Right.
I think there needs to be some kind of restriction there, that that a password needs to be put in prior to the child being able to, or teenager being able to download it, and the parent would have to go to the parent, and the parent would have to, review what kind of stuff is involved, if it's chatting, if it's video chatting, if it's anonymous chatting, just to prevent the teenager or child to be exploited online.
So the child or teenager doesn't get the password, the mom or dad keeps the password, and they have to put it in order for the child to actually buy it, essentially.
Yeah, or download.
Or download.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. What happens if something does happen and the child comes to the parent, or the parent is aware when they're going behind them and looking at the history of things that the child's been doing, and they're like, "Ooh, wait a minute, this needs to be reported."
Yeah, the parent's concerned enough or even the older teenager is concerned enough that, a crime has been committed or the person needs to be reported, they can always contact the local police department. Also, there's other ways that they could report online, or they can even report anonymously to the cyber tip line, which is run through the National Center of Missing Exploited Children, often referred as NECMEC.
Okay. You've mentioned the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Sounds like they do a lot. For me, I think of missing children, but it's more than that.
Yeah, they've taken a big role in combating online child exploitation. They serve as the clearinghouse in between the electronic service providers, like we spoke of before, collecting that information and getting it to the correct law enforcement agency. Also, they do a lot of stuff to help victims of those crimes, and also collecting tips from the general public.
Okay. You mentioned the tip line. I'm thinking what's the www for the tip line?
www.cybertip.org.
Okay. And if they have a 800 number and they want, something happens to the child and they need to report a lost child?
Yeah, 1-800-THE-LOST.
Okay.
And always your local law enforcement
Always,
agency if
yes.
it is a missing child.
Yes. That's the first thing. What's the rule? Like, how many hours if a child's missing before they report?
Immediately.
Immediately. Okay,
Yes.
so they don't have to wait, because I hear all kinds of things out there. You have to wait so many hours before you call the police.
No, you should call immediately with any kind of missing person.
Okay. Okay. And we're going to be posting a lot of other resources on some slides, so that if there's more information that the community needs to have, that you've provided. So we're going to see those slides as well. So any last minute tips? This is hard information that we're so worried about our kids. We want safety for our kids, and yet there's some bad guys out there that aren't wanting the safety of our kids. They want to actually exploit them and hurt them.
I just want to make sure that they have open discussions, and they let the teenager or the child know that, just like I said, stranger danger, that they never know who's on the other line, who's on the other end of the device, who's on the other end of the chat. Don't give out your personal information, and know that when they feel uncomfortable or they see something inappropriate, to report it either directly, or if they're older, or to report it directly to a parent or guardian.
Right. And you and the sheriff's office is always there. Any local law enforcement is there to help out.
Yep.
Yeah. You're not the bad guys, you're the good guys. Yeah, to help out and get them the help they need to keep everybody safe. Yeah. Well, Allison, I want to thank you for coming today and giving this information, so that hopefully we give some tips that will prevent something that a child might be getting into and they don't even know it.
Thank you for having me.
And also the sheriff's office for allowing you to come. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to thank you for joining us. If you want more information, we do have the Life Crisis Center hotline. You can always call for help as well. And that number is 410-749-HELP. Again, the number is 410-749-4357. We also have a text-to-chat function if you don't want to talk to somebody, just want to chat. And that number is 898-211. You do have to put in your zip code. We also, Life Crisis Center has a Facebook page. We're on Instagram. There's lots of ways to reach out. So if you need to report anything to law enforcement, call your local law enforcement. But if you just want to chat and talk to somebody because you're concerned, you can call the Life Crisis Center. So thank you for joining us today. And I also thank PANC 14 for making this available.